Let's bring this back to
reality.
The reality of the person listening and the pressing questions they have about all this stuff and what they should do. Is there anything else that you would give people that are listening right now in terms of advice to be able to weather the incoming turbulence that the CEO of Anthropic describes there?
Yeah. Look, the things that I know are good for people is I really believe that everyone should build a little bit of a personal brand. So a personal brand means that 2 to 20,000 people know who you are. They know what you do. They know what your experiences are like. They could approach you about an opportunity that would be a good opportunity. So build a bit of a personal brand. Don't be invisible in this particular time because, it is one of your assets, which is to take some of your knowledge, some of your playbooks, and to let people know that that exists. So I think build a bit of a personal brand. Second one is have a go at entrepreneurship, right? Join an entrepreneurial team, do an entrepreneurial side hustle, read some entrepreneurial books, watch some entrepreneurial videos that are out there. Start the process of thinking, okay, the school system taught me to be a standardized employee, a standardized labor. The school system wanted me to fit in with an office or a factory. But actually, there's this whole other way of creating value, which is non-standardized, called entrepreneurship. This is spotting opportunities and coming up with solutions to it. So, play around with the game, even if it's a small game. Like you might notice that there are dirty cars on the street and you might say, you know what, I'm going to go and knock on doors and wash the cars and see if I can make a couple of $100 in a day because I've seen an opportunity, I've seen something that's wrong and I'm going to go and have a go at fixing it.
A lot of founders are telling me, Mark Cuban said the other day that one of the great opportunities now is catering for the gap between small business owners that don't know how to use AI and helping them learn how to use AI.
Yeah, huge, right? Join a founder team and help them do that. As I said as well, 65% of all the businesses by valuation are people over 65 now. So there is a mathematical certainty that 2/3 of the businesses that run the economy by valuation have to change hands in the next 10, 15, 20 years. So this is a massive business opportunity. Baby boomers want to get rid of their businesses. They want to retire. Baby boomers are willing to fund you to buy their business if you present yourself well, if you've got a little bit of a personal brand. So that's a huge opportunity. So look into that. Cody Sanchez, a mutual friend of ours, she talks to people all the time about how to buy a baby boomer business and take it over and run it. So, that's a great opportunity. Play with these toys called AI tools. Someone has given you a free iPhone, which you can just use, called AI tools on the free account.
That is such good advice that we don't hear enough. Because I think people think there's where I am right now in my life and what I do, and then there's like Sam Altman and Elon Musk. And I'm one or the other. But actually, what I'm seeing as an employer we probably employ, I'd say 20 people a month at current rate. We're hiring 20 more people a month. Is increasingly on our culture test when we're screening who the right candidates are, we're looking for some kind of evidence that they're playing or messing around with AI.
Yeah.
And one of my team members she was trying to figure out how to get 100 different documents to synthesize and understand the data within these documents. Now, there's 2 types of people I can hire to do that. There's the old-fashioned way of doing that, where someone might sit there for 4 or 5 weeks and trying to figure out how to get an Excel document to have the right formulas. And then there's her, who we hired, even though she doesn't have skills in that particular thing, she has no experience in it. But because of her mindset and her agency, she went, maybe I could put this into Claude Cowork and set up an agent to run this for me. By the time dessert came, she pulled her laptop over to me and showed it to me. And she goes, Stephen, I've ran all those hundreds of documents into this file, and I can see the sentiment on every single post you've made on every single social platform, including every LinkedIn post you've made over the last couple of years. And we can see that actually, even though these posts get more likes, these ones are actually the best posts you're doing. She did that by dessert.
Yeah.
And I thought, isn't that interesting? How do you find people who have that bias in the modern world, where they lean into change?
It's
She's
curiosity,
not technical,
isn't it?
Yeah, it's curiosity, but there's also something which is like, and being fluid about your identity and what you know.
Yes.
Which is she has no experience in that.
But I can try. And the one thing for anyone watching or listening is that don't use AI as a search tool. Don't use it the way you used it a year ago. Give AI your hardest problem and say, hey, help me to solve this problem. So for example, you might say, I'm really struggling with these areas of my life. Here's all the data, here's all the information, here's the PDF documents, here's the backstory. Help me solve this. Help me write it. What kind of piece of software might I be able to use to build here? I'll give you a real example. One of our team members used AI to analyze all the sales calls for the last 3 months and discovered a huge opportunity. What they discovered is that 75% of all of our sales calls, the person who we were on the phone to mentioned that their spouse was a decision maker and that they needed to talk to their spouse, and that decision making, because it was a family business and that there was either a spouse or a family member. There was no point in our process where we invited collaboration with other family members. So none of our sales calls said, do you want to bring someone along to the sales call? Like, would you like to have someone do that? The AI analyzed it, discovered that opportunity, wrote a script as to how to invite people onto the call so that you get all decision makers on the call. And now our sales conversions are going up dramatically.
I think this is the real bifurcation in terms of the employment market of what we're seeing, is certain people have a positive relationship to disruption and technology and change. They get excited by it, whereas others fall into cognitive dissonance where they get so concerned that it's going to take out their business that they ostrich head in the sand. Mm-hmm. And then these other people have this inherent figure-out ability. I could say to a certain team member of mine, here's a big problem. And they would grab onto this big problem. And even though they have no proficiency in data or technology or AI or they'll plug away at it on a computer and they'll figure it out. And they'll use all available tools, not their identity, what they learned in university, or their experience as the only tool in the toolbox.
That's the difference between employee mindset and entrepreneur mindset. Entrepreneurs see problems as opportunities. They get excited by problems and they apply the entrepreneurial process. And employees say, hey, wait a second, I was never trained for this. I was never told how to do this. I was not given the rule book for this. So therefore, I'll just ignore it. I'll stay away from it because problems, it's not my problem. And this is the big fundamental shift. We need to say, hey, problems are great. We want problems. And is this problem for me? How would I test my assumptions? How would I build something quickly and cheaply? How would I then test that? How would I then scale that? Right? And it's just those kind of few steps that if you embrace those entrepreneurial steps, then life becomes great.
I have a contrarian take that I think writing is actually more important now than ever before, because writing is a proxy of understanding. And in a world of AI, what I'm finding when I look at like my innovation teams or where breakthroughs are coming from in my company, it's actually someone had a really good question.
Yes.
So they were like, could we theoretically analyze all of our sales calls using Claude to see if there's something interesting in there? Now that starts with someone understanding sales calls, understanding the tools that allow you to analyze them. They have lots of reference points. They understand lots of variant things. And that means they ask a really great question. So for me, one of the ways that I've been able to understand more things is just to write more often about them.
Can I go one step further?
Yeah, please.
And that is a process called pause, reflect, document. And pause, reflect, document, if you do it correctly, you go into nature, away from noise and away from technology, and you take a pen and a paper and you sit in nature on a bench and you just pause and just let some boredom set in. You reflect on what's going on. You try and zoom out to the bigger picture. You do some journaling and you do some dot connecting where you say, what are some of the dots that have happened in the last 5 years? What are some of the bigger picture impacts that I've made? What are some of the problems that I've struggled with? What if this was possible? What if that was possible? We live in this incredible fast-paced world where the one thing that no one allows themselves to do is to pause, reflect, document with a pen and paper. And those people who I know who are doing incredibly well are doing more and more of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same. I mean, you're one of them. You're a person look at this.
Yeah.
This is a lot of books.
That's my head.
But you tweet every day, you post every day. You're constantly experiencing something in the real world, writing it down to develop your thinking, which Rich Fryman talks about the process of understanding, where you learn something, condense it so an average person can understand it, then you share it with the world to collect feedback on that thought. He said that's the fastest, best way to learn.
Yeah.
But actually in a world of AI where ChatGPT can do all of that for me, we're deferring our ability to sort of condense, compress, and understand to an AI because we think it's creating an efficiency gain or a productivity gain. In the near term, like maybe today's email will save you 30 seconds, but the tax you're paying, I think, is an understanding. Mm-hmm. And understanding is a proxy of, therefore, writing great questions. I find myself writing more. I wrote a memo I was up till 2 a.m. last night writing a memo about my own
which
industry.
means you were up late thinking.
Yeah.
You were thinking clearly, and that was what you were really doing. A great question I want people to reflect on. I want them to think about the last 5 years and ask the question, when did I do something special that impacted a certain type of person? I can explain how I did it step by step and how it felt, and it would be of interest to plenty of people, all right? And that question contains what we talked about earlier, which is lived experience, feelings, playbooks, and connecting the dots looking backwards and actually coming up with some things that only I can do, things that only I can say. So that particular prompt, that particular question to sit in nature and think clearly and memo and document and write a memo about it. You know, I see so many people, and you and I have done this over the last couple of hours, we think so much about the future and the uncertainty of the future, but a lot of value comes from just looking backwards and connecting the dots and then thinking, what is it that I now know that I want to take forward and add value to others?
Sort of adjacent to that, but related, is another thing I think a lot about, which is trying to get more information and experiences from a wide set of reference points. Because when I think about innovation generally, innovation is the connection of like two ideas or thoughts or principles that someone else hasn't put together. So I think about the like non-stick frying pan. It was a guy who was fishing and was trying to get a material so his fishing tackle didn't stick together. And his wife walks past, allegedly, and says, "I'd love some of that stuff on our pans." And that ends up selling tens and tens of millions of non-stick pans. And even when you think about the iPhone, that was a combination of an internet device, a music device, and a telecommunications device put together, which you rarely found those three things in one space. 3 different reference points. To achieve that, someone would have had to understand music, the internet, and phones.
Yeah.
And even Steve Jobs himself, his skill stack contains typography and design, which is why he was able to disrupt BlackBerry.
He stumbled into a calligraphy class at university and loved calligraphy. And he was the first company to ever have fonts. And those fonts became a huge differentiator on the first Mac. And it was only because he had like combined calligraphy with computers. He created the font idea.
So maybe the future's owned by the wide, not the narrow in this regard.
Definitely. Become more of a generalist, become more curious, and go out of your comfort zones, right? The industrial age asked us to simply specialize and do one thing over and over. The grandfather of capitalism is a guy called Adam Smith, and he said ultimately efficiency is about doing one thing in the process over and over and over, but he said it's going to destroy the human spirit. He actually wrote about the fact that destroys the human spirit, having to just twist this knob over and over. That creates the most value in the economy, but it's horrible for you as a human. And he recognized that problem from the very beginning. What we've been trained to do is just twist the knob, twist the knob, twist the knob, do the same thing over and over. What we need to relearn how to do is allow us to become more human and say, actually, I'm going to explore nature. I'm going to explore this weird passion that I have for particular theatre companies and how they run. I'm going to go and explore this thing about like entrepreneur accelerators. I'm going to combine things. It's those rare combinations. And you need to trust your instincts that you're actually pulling on a few threads and bringing them together. I
do that while still focusing on a job, etc., because I do this for a living. So I get to sit here, someone walked in before you and they were talking to me. Alex Honnold was talking to me in that chair before you. That's why the little Taipei statue is behind us.
Yeah.
About, then you've talked to me today about this, and the next person will talk to me about neuroscience and bringing a human brain. And that's allowed me to kind of connect these interesting reference points. What I'm saying here is you don't need to quit your job and go and live in Peru to orchestrate your life in such a way. I think you just need to be really intentional about resisting the urge to be a narrow person and to identify too much with one's identity. And so when I left my former business, one of the chapters I wrote in my book is, how do I now resist all my labels? Because now I'm a social media CEO, and it's so tempting to gather around social media people, go to social media parties, put it in my bio, get social media opportunities, and just go further and further and further down that narrow line. So that's why I went and worked in psychedelics and biotech. I worked in cancer biotech. I started to DJ. I started a podcast called The Diary of a CEO. I tried to do as many things as I possibly could to remain wide.
Yeah, and your superpowers are extra superpowers when you take them somewhere new. So if you've got social media superpowers, within the social media bubble, Everyone's got those superpowers.
Yeah.
But if you go and take them into a completely new place, you discover that actually what you learnt over here becomes a massive differentiator over here.
Is there anything else the audience need to know about the big opportunities you see as we head into the future?
We all want the future to be bright. We all want the future to be amazing. And we love the idea of trying to improve the world. One of the best ways to improve the world is to improve your own situation, because the world is made up of people who have their own situation. You know, when we try and fix every problem on the planet, it feels completely crushing and it feels so much weight on your shoulders. When you actually say, what's my opportunity? Like if I improve the world by building myself a really great business that helps a few people, it helps 500 clients do something, and if I'm actually out there adding value in my unique way and I'm finding a way through this AI weird adventure that we're going on, that's actually helping the world, right? So you're bringing yourself forward, you're discovering something. I really want people to resist the trap of trying to fix everyone and fix everything. Try and figure out what is your opportunity, what is your way of adding value to others, what is your way of getting paid, what is your way of doing creative entrepreneurship, what's your contribution to the world, and that is actually a contribution.
Is that difficult to do? Because I think it assumes a certain level of self-awareness that is not always easy.
If you find it difficult to do, find someone who inspires you and see if you can join their team. So that's totally a valid move as well, right? Just get onto a team where someone's figuring this stuff out. Follow your inspiration. And sometimes your inspiration is to start something. Sometimes your inspiration is to help propel something forward, being part of someone else's team who does inspire you. Self-awareness is a skill that we all have to learn. We're all on a crash course with reality. Every single one of us is on a crash course with reality.
There's a lot of narrative on the internet that everybody can live their dream, and I wonder whether it's good. I wonder whether it's good advice to tell everybody to quit their job and pursue their dream.
I believe that the new size of business that makes the most sense is small and dynamic and lean, and is probably close to 10 to 50 people. And that is the new size of company that is really shaking things up and doing stuff. In fact, it's probably 2 to 20 people. I think that being part of a small, dynamic, vibrant entrepreneurial team is a great place for people to go and have a look and explore. Does that mean that everyone's suitable to quit their job and go start something from scratch with a blank piece of paper? Probably not, right? That's a particular role called the founder. Not everyone's ready to be a founder. In the same way, everyone could probably get a black belt if they joined a martial arts and stuck with it. But not everyone can start as a black belt. That's not where you start.
Even in those numbers, so if we said everyone's going to have, a team of 10 to 50, those numbers suggest that 1 in 50 or 1 in 10 people are going to be a founder.
Possibly. A lot more people are going to be founders. I really believe a lot more people are going to be founders. I also don't think it's wildly unnatural to be a founder. If you go through all of history, most people worked in little family businesses. That was actually the vast majority of people. Most businesses never got past 30 people. Our natural way of being is in family groups and tribal groups and little groups of less than 150 people. We've built up this idea that to be a founder means Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, or something massive like that, and that you're trying to build something that changes the world. I've got so many friends and clients who it's them, their assistant, and someone who's like head of customer development, and there's 3 or 4 of them, and they're having a great time, and they're doing $600-700 worth of revenue, and they've got loads of flexibility. Everyone takes their kids to school. Everyone finishes up at 4 p.m. They can travel. They can live and work anywhere. That's really cool.
This is your most recent book, Lifestyle Business Playbooks: How to Have Fun, Freedom, and Fulfillment with Your Own Business. You've written a lot of books. You could have written a book about anything. What's this book about and who is it for?
This book is about the times that we're living in, right? So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to give people some hope. There's such a negative narrative that AI is going to wipe out everything and that technology is going to destroy everything, and that, all this negativity about the times that we're in. I'm trying to create a counter narrative that actually, more than any other time in history, you could live and work from anywhere. You could have a group of 500 to a few thousand clients all over the world. You could add value to people in a unique and interesting way. You could have a career that's based on randomness and creativity and fun, and that there are some new rules to play by. And that if you learn the playbooks of entrepreneurship and if you learn the trends that are unfolding, that actually it could work out really, really well for you.
A lot of people want to, they want a side hustle, they want passive income. What's your general perspective on the reality of being able to generate passive income and a side hustle?
I think passive income reflects people's desire that they currently feel that they're working really hard and they hate work and they hate going to work, and that earning money is a horrible thing, and therefore they just wish it would just kind of take care of itself. The truth is that when you discover what I would call a lifestyle business, where you work a reasonable amount of time and you have a lot of fun with great people, you don't necessarily, as if by magic, the desire for passive income just evaporates. You go, this is better than passive income because I'm on a creative journey and I'm making great money and I'm having a lot of fun and I'm expressing myself. I think passive income ultimately comes from assets. It's not passive income, it's asset income. You're either going to have to create an asset, which could be a business that is a digital asset, or you make so much money in your lifestyle business that you own traditional assets like houses or stocks and shares and all that sort of stuff. But I'm not really focusing people on the idea of passive income. I'm focusing on the idea of having a lifestyle business that supports the way you want to live anyway.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.